Hey everybody, welcome to Broadband Deployment News. I'm Rick Uzzi. This is an interesting headline. Almost 50% of organizations plan to reduce cybersecurity headcounts. This is according to a survey, this is an interesting time for that. I'll be right back with more. Thanks for joining me, Rick Uzzi, here with Broadband Deployment News. As I said, this is an interesting time to be doing this, to be reducing cybersecurity headcount, especially if you're a broadband operator. Because for broadband operators, you are probably looking at how you can beef up cybersecurity, because if you plan on getting any federal funding, if you're going to be looking at applying for BEAD funding, or maybe you've been approved for the enhanced E-ACAM, the E-ACAM funding through kind of the Connect America Fund stuff, then you have to have cybersecurity in place. You need to be following the NIST cybersecurity framework. So this is more a story about large organizations, not necessarily internet service providers, but it is something that I wanted to point out. And it's timely too, both because of the need for broadband providers, but also because of a webinar that I'll be participating in tomorrow. So I wanted to discuss that. So see here again the story, but I wanted to bring this up right at the start as well, that I will be on a Fiber Broadband Association webinar tomorrow, meeting cybersecurity requirements for E-ACAM and BEAD. And joining me will be Travis Abrams from UNS. And we're going to be talking a lot about what is going to be required for broadband operators, and specifically to have a cybersecurity plan in place that meets the requirements of the NIST cybersecurity framework. Because that is the way that the BEAD Notice of Funding Opportunity and the E-ACAM notice says that broadband operators have to have in place. We're going to be talking a lot about that cybersecurity framework, what the pieces and parts of that are, and then what you need to be putting in place in order to do that. And I think it's going to be very educational for you. So you can go ahead and check that out. I linked to the article I'm going to look at, as well as to a link to this in the description of this video. Now that link, if you're a Fiber Broadband Association member, anybody can attend live. So if you see this before the broadcast tomorrow at 11 a.m. Eastern Time, anybody can attend live. After that, you would need to be a Fiber Broadband Association member to be able to attend or to watch the recording of that, although we will be getting a recording of that and putting that up on YouTube. So once that is available, I'll go ahead and swap out the link that I have in the description with the one on YouTube. So if you're watching this a little bit later, and that's already up on YouTube, then I'll be swapping out and you'll be able to watch that recording there and get some information about that. I think it's going to be very, very good, especially, again, if you are an internet service provider looking at either BEAD funding or E-ACAM, or really I think probably any future broadband funding is going to have, if it's federal government, certainly this administration, and I would think maybe most likely the next, because it's so important, will have some kind of a cybersecurity requirement, and most likely it will be very similar, where they're going to say, because it's it's NIST, National Institute of Security, whatever NIST stands for, but it's part of the Commerce Department. Once new funding comes out, I think they're all probably going to say that internet service providers need to have something in place that is reflective of the NIST cybersecurity framework. So we'll be talking about that tomorrow. So I want to make sure you're aware of that. And I want to talk about this story. So this is in CSO. Again, almost 50% of organizations plan to reduce cybersecurity headcounts. While organizations are realizing the need for knowledgeable teams to address unknown threats, they are also looking to reduce their security headcount and infrastructure spending, even as the number of security incidents continues to grow in all sectors. 47% of the respondents plan to reduce their security headcounts, a new report by Observe has revealed. Remarkably, 62% of the organizations also reported a higher number of security incidents per month. And we're seeing that across the board. And this is, by the way, these are going to be large organizations, I think, primarily, that are being interviewed or surveyed here. But every organization is seeing some kind of, threats. There's more ransomware attacking networks, individual PCs on networks and networks. So as these threats go up, they're actually going to be reducing the number of headcount, which is a problem. That those two things don't work well together. The organizations planning to reduce the cybersecurity headcounts are also planning to lower infrastructure spending, according to the survey. So not just the number of people, but also the infrastructure. And I'm assuming they're talking about cybersecurity infrastructure there. And that's, again, according to the survey. The report by Observe an observability company is based on a survey of 500 full-time security decision makers and practitioners conducted by CITE or Site Research. So I highlighted that differently because I think that kind of strikes me as these are the companies that are doing or that have people in place. Most companies don't. Okay, they've got an IT department. They don't necessarily have security. Well, I guess they have security decision makers. It could be the guy in the IT department. He's the security guy. But certainly most, if we think about the number of broadband operators out there, I'm not talking about like your major MSOs, but, you're talking about everything from, small city and town-based ISPs to regionals to larger operators. The vast majority of those probably do not have a security person. They have, as they get larger, they're going to have an IT department. Maybe as they're smaller, they've got an IT guy. And they just don't have a lot of time for security. They're busy keeping the network running, but they're not thinking about cyber attacks. So this is a problem. And here, I think these are probably companies that do have more cybersecurity in place, and they're looking at reducing the number of people they have for that and the infrastructure. Now, it's really hard to find cybersecurity people right now. They're in demand because of the fact that all of the threats are going up. So this may be, as these companies get rid of some of their cybersecurity headcount, that means there may be more people out there available for companies to hire. But again, it's just very difficult to maintain that on your own. So one of the things we'll be talking about tomorrow and that I want to mention today is that one solution is a security operations center as a service. In other words, you don't need to hire cybersecurity personnel, and you don't need to even purchase a lot of cybersecurity equipment. You can do a lot of that. It can be mostly cloud-based. You have to have some agents, running on different, not people, but agents running on different equipment and maybe endpoints on your network to be able to collect data. But a lot of that then being analyzed and monitored and actively worked on doesn't have to be you. So that's important to keep down costs, especially if you're a smaller operator. But it's also important, for example, if you are going to be getting E-ACAM funds and you're sitting there wondering, how am I going to get all this done? Well, it can be implemented much more quickly because you don't have to hire the people and set up the infrastructure. And all you have to do is create your plan around that. And actually, a company like us, we can help with this Security Operations Center as a service. Plus, we can help you as far as developing your plan, letting you know where your risks are, kinds of things that you need to be implementing internally. It's not just about equipment. It's not just about software. It's not just about people. It's about policies and making sure that the people, everybody, not just your cybersecurity people, but everybody is following sound cybersecurity practices as far as passwords and making sure that they understand, threats and phishing attempts, those kinds of things. There's all kinds of things you need to have in place to protect yourself. So we can help with that. So, but again, I highlighted that because I thought it was interesting that these are the companies that the ones that were surveyed are the ones that actually have probably a cybersecurity, at least one guy or a team in place already. In general, it mentions here there's a shortage of cybersecurity professionals as they're in high demand because of the growing number of security-related events. Now, again, as companies reduce their headcount, that may mean there'll be more people available. But again, it's still hard to implement all this, which is why these companies are reducing headcount. In general, there's a shortage. I said that. The recent cybersecurity workforce study from ISC2, a nonprofit member organization for cybersecurity professionals, noted that the cybersecurity workforce shortage has grown to a record high of just under 4 million. Almost all the surveyed organizations, 99%, are prioritizing security observability, according to the Observe report. Security observability borrows concepts from observability to enable security operations teams to understand risks and incidents in a more holistic way. And observability is basically that's getting lots of data from your IT infrastructure and being able to look at that, as they say, holistically here, as opposed to different areas and not being able to kind of figure out what's going on. It's different from monitoring, where monitoring you decide what data you want to be receiving, specific data, and it just comes in and you look at it. Observability, again, looks at the whole picture and it helps you be more proactive and dynamic as you're looking at things. So that's what they're talking about there. Large companies are struggling to integrate systems. The report revealed that smaller organizations are struggling on multiple levels to incorporate security observability as part of their security systems. And I'm not surprised. Again, small organizations, and this would especially go for small ISPs, are they just don't have the staff to do this, and they're not thinking about observability. The most they're thinking about probably is monitoring, which is, again, getting data from various systems and seeing where they might have an issue. And it's not so much, they're not generally monitoring for cybersecurity. They're monitoring for, is my CMTS or my OLT up and running, and what's the performance look like? How do my routers look? Am I having any, they might be looking for things that could potentially show an issue, like maybe I'm having a DDoS attack or something like that. But they're not looking at this in a holistic way and looking at patterns of behavior and things that are not normal for their network. They're just looking at data coming in, other than maybe like a spike in bandwidth. That's not normal. But, so again, it's very different. And most smaller companies and certainly internet service providers, broadband operators, are not doing these kinds of things. It says, however, this also makes them prudent about spending, thus ensuring they avoid hype-driven adoption of products. And you do want to avoid that. There's not, it's not really hype though. When you talk about cybersecurity, it's really critical. It can shut down your business. Okay. And if your business is providing broadband, it shuts down everybody's service. Could be that maybe a cyber attack shuts down your billing and you can't bill people for a while. That's one thing. But if you are a broadband operator and suddenly your network is down and you can't provide service to anybody, that's your business that's down. On the other hand, large organizations have access to a wide range of tools and products, but they struggle to integrate them for optimal performance. Again, just a matter of companies are struggling in general to have enough people to work on these things, and cybersecurity a lot of times is left behind. So last note here, a positive revelation from the survey was that 73% of the respondents said that they are using a combination of incident response and Security Operations Center in-house to detect and respond to security incidents. And again, these are, I think, larger organizations that have some security teams in place, which is why you're seeing a figure like 73% that have something like a SOC, a Security Operations Center, in place. As I mentioned, that would be, a SOC would be internal, your own Security Operations Center, but you can do this. We can do this Security Operations Center as a service, so that you don't need to have your own SOC, don't need to have it internally, and don't need to figure out how to manage everything. That's one of the problems, is you can set up your own cybersecurity stuff and you can get your plan in place. But if you do it, let's say, with existing people that are mostly working on IT stuff, and you don't watch those things, you're not focused on cybersecurity, then you're going to fail, basically. So you need to really have people specifically for this. And if you do that as a service, where you pay monthly for it as opposed to investing in all the equipment and hiring people, then that's something that's much easier to maintain, because you're not maintaining it for the most part. You're just making sure, what you need to make sure in that case is that you keep your policies in place and do the things that you control so that you maintain your security. So again, making sure that you're doing ongoing training on security policies and practices that would be the risk on that software can't prevent. Somebody calls one of your employees and they get a password to something that they're not supposed to have access to because the person is doing a vishing. It's like phishing, except they call on the phone and they get credentials because they pretend they're somebody else in another office, and then suddenly you've got a hacker in there. You can't really protect that from software. Now you can mitigate it, actually, because again, one thing that a lot of these intrusion detection systems can look at is behavior that looks odd. Endpoint detection and response, for example, not just antivirus on an endpoint, but endpoint detection and response can look at behaviors and say, wait a minute, this thing that's going on over here is not normal behavior. Whereas antivirus is just looking at a pattern of a file that comes in. So you can mitigate some of that. So while somebody may be able to get in because they compromise somebody's password, you may be able to lock that down before that person gets access to all of the really important stuff. So you still can mitigate it. But again, a big risk is the people. You got to keep people trained. It says here, on the other hand, 13% are using only IR and 7% are depending only on SOC teams to discover security events. Organizations clearly feel the need for knowledgeable teams that can hunt for unknown threats and respond, said the report. And that's really, it's a very active thing. And that's why it's so important. And that's why I was saying, check out the webinar tomorrow if you can. Got to get back over there. Again, I linked to this, and you can also go to our website. Go to zquorum.com. You see the address there, and just look for cybersecurity up in the menu, and you can check out some of the services that we offer, because it is cybersecurity is a very active thing. It has to be done right, the correct way, and it's an ongoing thing. You can't just set it up and just set it and forget it. You can get us to do it. We'll set it up as a service, and you can forget it, but we don't. In other words, we're still doing everything on the background, monitoring everything actively, looking at alerts, those kinds of things, so that your team doesn't need to do. So we're doing the active part. You need to keep your house in order, and we tell you what you need to do there. So again, check us out, and check out that webinar tomorrow if you can. And again, if you can't make it live tomorrow and don't have access to the webinar at some point, I will get a link to YouTube where we'll have that webinar posted up there. Thanks for joining me today. Hopefully this was useful and helpful. If so, if you give me a like on the video, I'd appreciate it. And if you're not subscribed, click the subscribe button that you see there on YouTube somewhere, and then click the bell and you'll be notified when I'm live. Thanks a lot. Bye-bye.